Hi, this is Tenacious Earl with another episode of the Tabletop Baseball Plus Shortstops. So, these are just little segments where we try to cover pertinent questions to the tabletop hobby. And this is going to come because we had a question left as a comment on one of our previous shortstop videos. And this is from a subscriber named Akemi Hikaru. Well, I'm not sure if he's a subscriber, but anyway. He left this message, he or she, and here's what we got. Can we get a shortstop episode that describes some of the different projects that we can tackle? I've heard season replays, series replays, streak replays, but I'm sure there are a few creative ones out there. Thanks. So, right there we have three, but I've written down a list here this morning, just trying to sit down and think. This is by no means a compendium, but let's just go through here, through this list and try to talk about what you can do if you're trying to get a project going and you want to try and have something of meaning come to your tabletop experience. Some people just like one-off games, but some people really like projects. So the first is I'm going to talk about full season, and this is kind of like the holy grail, we'll say, of the tabletop genre. This is what everybody aspires to one day do, maybe, or maybe not everybody, but a lot of people do. It's like the grandfather of projects, which is, especially if you're talking the entire league and an as played replay. So when we talk about that, it's either replays or simulations. If you're going to do a replay, you might as well do as played, right? I mean, you might as well just use the lineups. Some people would say, do you use pitching changes and all that stuff? I don't know. I mean, you try to use the game day rosters for each game. Try to use the lineups and just try to do it that way. Try to make it as close to what happened in real life as possible, barring, injuries are generated in games and other stuff. But that's kind of like the grand summit of Tabletop Mountain is kind of like that. You could also just do a single team, and it's the same thing. That's what I did with the Phillies replay. It was a single team, and it was as played. But that's what I tend to call a replay, is you're going to try and do everything the same. And I mean, you might say as played. You might just say replay if you want to try and change some things. It's not going to be exact. That's the thing. But you try to do your best if you're going to make it as played. But in my terms, if you're going to call it a replay, I don't know. I feel like it should be as played. But now simulation is where, and this is where I've done these tenacious type leagues with baseball, and then nine-acious with football, and some other things. It's limited teams. So in what I do, I pick a random batch of teams, usually from the same season set. You can come from different leagues. You can come from the same league. Heck, you could simulate with a full league, and that's why I'm saying, like, if you're going to not use the lineups, I would almost call it a simulation because you're changing something. But it's all right either way. I mean, you've got those types of things that are available. So let's move on to category 2. And that's a partial season. And, well, in theory, I guess I had simulation under full season, and I was talking about tenacious. The tenacious leagues really come under the partial season, and again, it's a simulation. Again, it's almost always limited teams. You could bring from different seasons. I've heard of people doing that. You're going to get a batch of 10 teams from a variety of different eras, or teams that you really like, or anything like that. I mean, there's lots of permutations you can do for that. And with that means you can choose your own lineups, you can modify rules, you can do a number of different things, because again, it's a simulation. You aren't bound by what happened, or what trying to sort of recreate anything that did happen. I don't want to pitch anything, but I will say History Maker is good for that, just in that, if you're simulating, it simulates a lot of the background information, things that are coming up, like injuries and hot streaks, cold streaks, all sorts of stuff. So now the other thing that's a partial season, so this is sort of a subcategory, would be a single month or a single section of the season. And usually the way that is it's like the last month of the season, and it's a team that either didn't get in or did get in, and you're trying to see if you could play it out. Tabletop Earl has done these before. But you could also do when you say a section, you could also do just, let's say a team had a really good month or a really bad month. You're like, can I manage this team better? Or can I manage it the same? Or what happened? What was the problem? And you go through, and again, you could either simulate or you could do replay. Either way. And I guess you could also kind of throw in here maybe single player, but we'll get to that a little bit more later. So let's move into now my next one is postseason replays or postseason. I keep saying replay. Postseason projects. It could be a single team. You just want to replay how they did in the playoffs. Fine. Multi-team. You could do the whole darn thing. You could do a hypothetical. You could say, man, that team from 1976 was really good, but they missed the playoffs because there was a limited number of teams in the playoffs. What if? You could do that. That's cool. Lots of different ways to do that. You could even do hypothetical, what if a player didn't get injured in September? All these kinds of things are usually available to you. And I'm going to switch my pages. I'm trying to go through this quickly, but it's not easy because there are a lot of different types, and I'm trying to hit as many as I can. Type 4 would be player replays. So usually this has been pitchers because pitchers tend to be in the 20 to 35 game range. And so you're not talking like a huge project. This is like a very small subset. You could do a hitter, though. Maybe a hitter only was in a portion of the season, or that could also be your streak. Somebody had a 30 some odd game hitting streak during a stretch, and you want to see if you can carry it out. Things like that. I think someone did some Ohtani stuff from recently. So, and again, he was sort of pitcher, but also hitter. And so there's some of that too. So, and again, all of this stuff, I'm really kind of like encapsulating baseball, right? Take all of the other sports that are out there and let your imagination run wild. You could take any of this stuff and say, oh, how can I turn that into bowling? What can I do for bowling that is that uses some of this kind of ingenuity? Because frankly, there haven't been too many bowling things out here, especially if you're talking like on video. Baseball gets a ton of play on video, but use your imagination. So a couple more here as we close, which may be a little less common, but are still possible. The next one would be a draft league. So this is where you just take all the players in a league and you randomize them. One of the friends of the channel, RNGIDP, he did that a few years ago. And I don't know how far he got with it. Usually you're going to have to use a very large subset of teams. So that's kind of potentially problematic because it can take a long time. But it's something different. Another thing would be all-time teams. A lot of the companies sell like the greatest Yankees or the greatest Rangers teams or the greatest Blackhawks or the greatest Raiders, things like that. You could do that. Match up best all-time teams. See who had the best players of all. I mean, you could do that. It's a little less common, but it's there if you're willing to purchase things. 7 would be like player replacement. So now Tabletop Earl just did something like this where he said, we're just going to only use the players that had limited numbers of at-bats and innings pitched. Things like that. But again, it kind of like goes back to what would happen if so-and-so wasn't injured the entire season in April. Like this year, the Phillies had Andrew McCutchen get injured. What would happen if we took McCutcheon's card from so-and-so year and plug it in and play it out with the Phillies, would they have had any better, results? I don't know. Viable thing to do. And anyway, so, and then the last one that just kind of, it's funny, it came to me at the end because it's the thing that I've probably done as much as anything. It's one of the few projects I've completed, was History Maker Golf, the Tenacious Golf Tour, but it's fictional. And there's really one company that comes up with the fictional cards. It's Play. Maybe some other companies will in the long run, but if you are looking for a fictional league with players that are absolutely non-real life, you have, I don't know. I don't know if Keith at Play takes players from real life and their stats and just kind of like uses fictional names and just sort of like recasts, or if he just has an algorithm where he imparts the traits or whatever. However it is, that's another way to do it, where you basically divorce yourself of team, player, identity, all this stuff. Everything that goes along with that. You've got guys that you just can learn and have fun with without any preconceived notions of who would be better than the other. So, and I'm sure that there are lots of others. Feel free to comment with any other types of projects you've tried. I've always thought of the YouTube channel, not only this one, but my previous one, Tenacious Strat, and then other people's, as ways to help brainstorm, so that we had sort of an evergreen community where people are trying new things and finding new ways to get more out of simulating things on the tabletop using cards, dice, game boards, whatever you want to call it. There's lots of ways to do it, even computer simulations, if you will. I'm not gonna disparage that. It's all simulation, it's all fun, but we do tend to focus on the tabletop here. So leave a comment with any projects you've tried or anything that maybe you were thinking about doing, and maybe you could get some feedback from either us or some of the other commenters. And I would just say that hit like and stay tuned for lots more action here on the channel. Maybe we'll have some bright ideas in the near future that will be even better than what I listed out here. Have a look through what we've done in the past here in the channel, all of our projects and playlists and stuff and videos. So have a good rest of your day, and thanks for tuning into the Shortstop here. Have a good one, and keep rolling your dice.